The combination of the four elements in one person that makes the Avatar so powerful. But it can make you more powerful too.
Avatar is a fresh take on the Chosen One trope, the almost Jesus-like figure of their world, capable of bending all four elements, the bridge between their realm and the spirit world. Regarding how powerful they are, it's easy to just overlook the fact that they are indeed human beneath all this power. We saw Aang evolve from a childish little mind to a responsible bender who adapted to the fact that he had to grow up too fast. This is what is called character development, something that Korra, Aang's successor, lacks. Or does she? Because yes, I am part of a certain elite team who believes that Korra is far from being as messy in terms of writing as she is depicted to be in the Avatar fandom. And I know this is a risky position to defend, so if you agree, be sure to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes up. This is the best way to encourage me and any Korra fan out there. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, greetings and welcome to Screen Scene, the show where we review pop culture. I'm Alex from Zelrix, and today we'll be watching Avatar and its successor, The Legend of Korra. In terms of character development, storyline, and writing, we'll be comparing Aang to his successor, Korra. And if you behind your screen have something interesting to say on the matter, be sure to mention it in the comment section down below. Once again, subscribe, yada yada yada, and start to bend that like button like you've never done before. Yes, this is an Avatar video. What am I supposed to do? Not do stupid bending puns? On that note, the main point I want to defend today is that the second you start to accept that The Legend of Korra is different from The Last Airbender and that this is okay, it actually becomes a really great show. But first of all, as Avatar fans, where do we stand? With the arrival of the Avatar studio, the comic books, the promise of a Zuko movie, it is a great time to be part of this wonderful fandom. Or not when you think about it, because a cross-universe across multiple medium and a canon too big to be even remotely possible not to do mistakes about it, that's pretty much what killed Star Wars. But through a gigantic canon, opens the door to new fans to come. New fans who will eventually have their own point of view on the way to interpret our piece. And this is in this optic that I propose you to analyze Korra, a missed sequel. One of the greatest strengths of The Last Airbender is the cultural homage. The Water Tribes are inspired from the Inuit tribe, the Earth Kingdom from China, the Fire Nation from feudal Japan, and the Air Nomad from Tibetan monk. And if someone dares to talk about cultural appropriation, I swear to God, I'm going full Fire Nation on your ass. But speaking of culture, if you want to know more about the cultural impact of the elements, their tribes, and their philosophy, I shall redirect you to my video essay on the matter. So you'll guessed it, in The Last Airbender, we are in a mostly Oriental-inspired iconography paying homage to all these different cultures. You could also underline the fact that Aang and most Avatar before him traveled the world not only to find a teacher but also to open up to these new cultures surrounding the elements. Because the elements are not just powers, they are a lifestyle and entire philosophical movement. An earthbender will eat, speak, and stand differently than a fire or waterbender.
The people in my city have gotten fat from too many feasts, so I hope you like your chicken with no skin.
Thanks, but I don't eat meat.
A great example of this is also through teaching. In the Northern Water Tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn how to bend water, aside from the practice of water healing. And in the Earth Kingdom, they have the legend of Umashu, where we learn that a woman was indeed probably the most powerful earthbender in history. As far as traditionalism goes, we see that in the Fire Nation, students are not encouraged to develop a critical sense, while the airbenders are notorious to be the most spiritual people on Earth. These are all cultural differences in which Aang evolves to become the truest form of the Avatar. Then came The Legend of Korra, where in episode 1 the main character is already a master level bender of 3 of our 4 elements. And cherry on top, we also learned that she didn't even travel through the world to learn the elements. At the beginning of the show, Korra is already a master of fire, water, and earth. But she can't produce a single breath of hair. Maybe the fact that Korra didn't traveled through the world and was kept in specific places to learn to bend for her entire life is why she has trouble airbending. Air being known as the element of freedom and liberty.
For air is the element of freedom.
Telling me to embrace freedom, but you won't even let me listen to the radio? And forget about leaving this island.
Meanwhile, the Oriental and Northern Canadian aspect of the show is traded in Korra to make room for this 1920s New York City with the place of Republic City. All elements turning Korra into a stubborn mind totally close to foreign cultures. Also, did you notice that they switched the broadcasting format? I'm not gonna get in too much detail about the difference between an episodic and serialized show, for the sole reason that I did that legit 2 videos ago. But the fact is that The Last Airbender was a mainly episodic show composed of one-off episodes with an overarching plot with the Sozin Comet and the Fire Nation developed in the background. For The Legend of Korra, on the other hand, when we get past the first few episodes, we enter a 100% serialized TV show. A show where the episodes are meant to be watched in order and where if you miss an episode, you won't be able to follow the rest. This switch in formula can probably explained by the fact that Korra was originally meant to be only 1 season long, so I don't know, maybe that the writer wanted to focus the story as much as possible. And that's for all these reasons and many more that The Legend of Korra is a bad sequel. Because it's not a sequel, it's a spin-off. A sequel is a piece of medium that follows up on the story of the previous one, where a spin-off is a byproduct or an accidental result of a larger project. To put it simply, and because I know who I'm talking to, we're gonna put that in Marvel terms. Avengers Endgame and Infinity War are direct sequel to The Avengers and Age of Ultron, but as far as these 4 movies goes, they're all spin-offs of the first Iron Man.
But technically, the first MCU movie is X-Men now that they've tapped into the multiverse.
The first what now?
MCU movie.
The first what now?
The first MCU movie, the movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Marvel Cinematic Universe, not multiverse. Please stop memeing, I can't take this anymore. So The Legend of Korra. Not a sequel, but a spin-off. That's why it's so crappy at following up Aang's adventures, because it's not meant to do so. The codes, formula, and character development are too different to be called a sequel. And we can also see that in the story arcs. 70 years separates the two Avatar. 70 years in which the world evolved a lot. That's what people don't get about this universe, is that in 7 decades, maybe Aang faced a threat even greater than Ozai. For all we know, the Ozai arc was just a little part of his journey. And 7 years separates the two cartoons. 7 years in which the fandom has grown up and the fanbase of general medium has evolved. That's what people don't get about how and why The Legend of Korra is so different than The Last Airbender. It's because the target audience is different, and it's because it evolves in a world where we evolved. During the era of Aang, the world was at war and his journey was to master the 4 elements and become the Avatar, bring balance to the world and establish peace. His enemies such as Admiral Zhao, Azula, and Ozai, they have their own selfish interests at heart and they are traditional villains. Scary enough to feel dangerous, but not too scary so they can be enjoyed by viewers of all age. In 2005, a villain was a villain. They were a bad person and we should not identify as them, and the medium tend not to glorify them. Can you imagine if Joker actually came out in 2005? But Korra, her duty as the Avatar is much more political. She has to maintain the peace and to please the people as a politic figure and a sort of ambassador for all the nations. In terms of villains, we notice 2 main differences. The first one is that even though season 1 and 2 of The Last Airbender had Zhao and Azula respectively as main villain, they were mainly henchmen of Ozai, the Fire Lord and true nemesis of Aang, teased since season 1 and only revealed in season 3. For Korra, once again, since season 1 was supposed to be the one and only adventure, we are treated with the apparition of Amon. Amon is sold as this perfect nemesis for Korra and his face is only revealed at the end, making by that logic a nice parallel with Ozai and Aang. But that's honestly where all similarity stops. for Amon and Ozai and all the other villains in the license. Amon wants to rid the world of benders as he believes in equality, that the people must never feel as powerless as non-bender can in a bender world. Unalaq wants to bring the spirit world and the human realm closer, to reunify them, even at the cost of greater safety being put in 10,000 years of darkness. Zahir, arguably the greatest villain in the franchise, paradoxically believes that the world needs order, but that chaos is the natural order of the world, and that the Avatar cycle should end as it stops said chaos from existing, thus preventing order. Finally, Kuvira believes in peace but also in submission. She believes the only way humanity will truly be at peace is if they march as one under one banner, with her as the supreme ruler, or it's not funny. All these differences, I believe they're intentional for two reasons. First of all, the writer probably wanted to get away from The Last Airbender to tell a truly original story instead of just rehashing the same concept they already exhausted. Then once again, The Legend of Korra came in a different context. Already in 2012, it was way more current to put villains that we can identify with. Villains with great points and greater objective who are not just selfish little bastards. We can already think about Thanos, who only has the greater good for the universe at heart. Or lately with Encanto, the antagonist of the movie is technically Abuela. She's not a bad person, but her devotion to her family drives her to do bad things throughout the movie. This is where the line between a villain and an antagonist can be drawn. Sometimes the antagonist is, yes, a pebble on the road of the main hero to accomplish their goal, but they're not evil. A great example of this is L in Death Note. He's the antagonist to Light, but even though he is pretty despicable in his behaviors, you gotta admit that he's trying to do the right thing by stopping Light. Well, Light is a serial killer, but he's also the protagonist that we as the audience follow, and a little bit we identify with him, which is kind of weird. And even though this gray area in fiction exists since the dawn of time, in modern pop culture, especially in the early 2000s, it was pretty uncommon, especially for shows like Avatar who were aimed at a younger audience. These shows tend to depict good as good and evil as evil. And you can start right away erasing your comment about Zuko's redemption arc, because in the first few episodes it is already very clear that Zuko is far from being evil, in addition of having the best redemption arc in TV history. And this difference in writing, it doesn't just affect the villain and the medium, it also affects the protagonist, the starting element. You know it, each generation, the Avatar is born in a different tribe. Following the cycle, Aang was an air nomad, succeeding to Avatar Roku, who was a firebender, and Korra, she was born in the water tribe. The last heard Avatar was Kyoshi. It's not relevant, but if I don't mention Kyoshi, I'm gonna get haters. But here, in the protagonist, the difference doesn't just lay in the starting element, but also the relationship with said element, and even all the other ones. Aang is an air nomad. He is a vegetarian, calm and playful. Air is the element of freedom, and Aang is a free spirit. That's mostly how and why he can access the spirit world so easily. Aang is an airbender born in the Air Nation, but Korra, even though she was born and raised as a waterbender in the Water Tribe, her philosophy greatly differed this element. She's strong, solid and imposing, authoritarian, ready to make anyone who opposes her yield. Korra is closer to an earthbender. You can even see that in her learning curve. Aang mostly struggled with earthbending, as earth is the exact opposite of air. In terms of philosophy, air is about freedom and spirituality. Earthbenders tend to be more grounded and realistic. For Korra being a waterbender, we would assume that firebending is the most difficult element for her to master. But it's not the case, she's already mastered firebender. And granted, we don't exactly see her train to become a firebending master, but in the first episode, we already see that as a kid she could produce fire, and whether if she struggled or not, learning how to airbend is the real challenge. It's part of her story arc in season 1. And let me remind you once again that season 1 was supposed to be the one and only season of The Legend of Korra. So her struggle with airbending, it was originally written to be the greatest challenge she overcame. Tenzin will himself declare that the most difficult element for the Avatar to master is the one as far as possible from their personal belief belief and philosophy. For Aang, since he was properly trained by the monk and that his philosophy was close to the air nomads, it was hurt. Here, once and for all, drawing the line between personal belief and the culture the Avatar grows up in. That said, Aang and Korra having this different relationship to their starting element divides them into another rift. Their spirituality. If air is the element of freedom, earth is the element of substance. The key to earthbending is to listen, to analyze, and to act realistically. This creates a new challenge for Korra, as is earth the most realistic element. It's also the less spiritual one. A delicate position to be in when you are the Avatar and that your job is literally to be the bridge between the spirits and the humans. It takes an entire season for Korra to learn how to bend this element and to access true spirituality, to access her full potential as the Avatar, as the bridge between the spirit and the humans, and to access the knowledge of all the past Avatar. All features accomplished by Aang in a matter of episodes. Speaking of Aang, have you noticed that he is the one restoring Korra's bending at the end of season 1? That the completion of this story arc is literally carried by the Avatar who bended hair before Korra bended water and all the other elements. Once and for all, closing the circle and proving that each element is very important and that the Avatar has to draw knowledge from all different sources. But it doesn't mean Aang is a more powerful bender than Korra or a more capable Avatar, even though that's up for debate. It just means that these two characters, they have differences in their stories, personalities, etc. There are a lot of problems encountered by Aang that Korra could have snapped away. The main focus of the last arc of The Last Airbender is about whether or not to kill the Fire Lord. Aang doesn't want to kill Ozai because he was raised to believe that all life is sacred. And let's face it, Korra would have obliterated Ozai's ass if she had the chance. Aang's story is about destiny, about realizing his full potential as the Avatar, to overcome a major threat and to defeat an enemy too powerful for anyone else. We can trace this parallel between Aang and his rival Zuko, the banished Fire Prince, who claims that his destiny is to regain his honor.
Don't walk away from this!
Let him go. He needs time to sort it out by himself.
Only this quest is tainted by Ozai and his manipulation.
For so long, all I wanted was for you to love me, to accept me. I thought it was my honor that I wanted, but really, I was just trying to please you. Father, who challenged me, a 13-year-old boy, to an Agni Kai. How can you possibly justify a duel with a child? They don't see our greatness. They hate us, and we deserve it. If we don't want the world to destroy itself, we need to replace it with an era of peace and kindness.
Notice how by the end of the show, both Aang and Zuko have fulfilled their destiny and that they are respectively a worthy Avatar and Fire Prince.
But with the Avatar's help, we can get it back on the right path and begin a new era of love and peace.
Korra is about self-accomplishment and duty. The Legend of Korra turns around how the Avatar's duty is to the world and what it reflects on their own psychology. And rather to have a rivalry with a mighty tyrant, she protects the world against a bunch of villains composing a rogue gallery, none of them having a real selfish goal at heart, but rather a difficult to understand point of view on our society.
When I was a boy, a firebender struck down my entire family and left me scarred. That tragic event began my quest to equalize the world.
The synthesis of The Last Airbender is a magic adventure of good versus evil, simple but which doesn't talk down to its audience like The Lord of the Rings. Meanwhile, Korra is much more like Game of Thrones, where the lines between good and evil are blurry and where what is good can always be debated. That's what people don't get about the Avatar universe. These two heroes are different and so are the two shows and any prequel or sequel in development.
You are trying to hold on to a false perception of yourself. You are not me, and you should not be me.
And I know I've said that a lot on this channel, but different doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean good. It's not better, it's not worse, it's different. So maybe instead of hating on Korra because it's not code for code ripped off of The Last Airbender, maybe to appreciate this universe and this fandom at their full potential, we should take a page out of the Avatar's playbook and teach ourselves a valuable lessons of tolerance and open-mindedness. There you go, guys. Tell me, do you think The Legend of Korra is a worthy successor to The Last Airbender? Be sure to politely debate in the comment section down below. While you're there, why don't you tell me which is your favorite avatar? Team Korra, this is your day to shine. I want to hear you loud and clear. And then remember to subscribe and activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes up, and to follow me on my social medias, mainly Instagram, if you want to support my artwork. Then share this video with all your wonderful Avatar, The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra fans. Friend, as always.